What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to episode 6 of the Add a Zero Challenge, where we take $10,000, grow it to $100,000, all live streamed on Twitch and made into these vlogs, wherever you're watching this. Thanks for being here. Now, we are starting today with $7,270. I thought the goal was to add a zero, not lose 5. That is the goal, and we have failed so far. We lost $805 last session, so the bankroll is at a brand new low, but we're coming into today with optimism. We're going to play some big pots. I feel like it's just our time, so let's get into the hands. First hand of the session, we're looking down at 9s of our session.
65.
We are going to raise it to 65. This is in a double straddle. We have Jacob beside us. Action player, likes to double straddle, likes to put in action.
Don't be spiteful and just fold to teach me a lesson. Don't.
We've got about 150 in the middle. 147, I think. Check on the 8-4-2. We're going to bet 80. But half pot, we get a quick call from Jacob. Going to the turn, which is the 10 of hearts. Fine card. We still feel like we probably have the best hand.
175.
We bet 175 here on the turn. Planning to likely check the river. I think it's a little bit thin to go for 3 streets of value with the 9s, depending on what the river is, but feeling pretty good about our hand. River is a 3. Okay. And Jacob leads for 570. We are in the nightmare. We've been put into the blender from the action player right away in the double straddle. Has a very wide range. That means has 2 pairs. That means has 5-6 straight. But also is very capable of bluffing. We have 9s. A hand that basically beats, it definitely beats all their bluffs. It's not a terrible hand with blockers. It's fine. What do we do against the action player? He showed a bluff last session against us with King Queen, where he led on the flop and he bet the turn on an ace high board in a 3-bet pot. What do we do with our 9s? It's a very difficult spot. I go deep into the tank on this one.
Just need a bit of time on this one. I think it through.
I try and get a sense for his strength just based on vibes, but I eventually end up folding the 9s.
So it's good if it's a bluff or a value bet either way.
I ask for the show, and he shows 5-6 the nuts.
Nice hand.
That's the big part of this hand, is his range is so wide that he's capable of having these straights and 2 pairs. And the big lead on the river, I haven't seen him pull the big bluff on the river yet. So I think we're kind of indifferent. Keep it straightforward and fold, I think, is fine. And it was the right fold. It keeps us with an extra $550 here in this spot. Next hand, we're looking down at ace 8 of clubs. Some of you have maybe already seen this hand. Get a raise to 20 from seat 7. Now with our ace 8, I decided to go for a 3-bet here.
55.
You can also call in some games. You can also fold in some games, but I think in this game it was a good 3-bet. So we 3-bet, and we get a cold call on the button. And then we also get a call in seat 7. So we're 3 ways to the flop. There's about 190 in the middle, and we flop trips. In a 3-bet pot, we flop trips. This is the dream. We're going to bet 80 into this pot, just praying for someone to continue against us. We get a call on the button, and seat 7 folds. Moving on to the next card, which is a 10 of spades. Again, pretty much a brick. We could be losing to 10s full here. On the turn, could have made a full house. But really, I mean, a very small part of what I would expect this range to be. We bet 200, and our opponent finds the call. We're going to the river, which is the gorgeous, the beautiful 6 of spades. We have 8s full of 6s. Loving our life. We shove all in.
8.
Immediate call.
Oh, straight flush.
We don't, you know.
Wow.
What is there to say, chat? What is there to
show
say?
that hand, do they?
Sometimes you make full houses, you lose to straight flushes and 3-bet pots. It happens.
Yeah, they will.
That's a full stack we lost, and we are now behind on the day. In for 1,600, looking down at King Queen. Come on, poker gods, it's our time as we raise it up. Get a call in seat 2. And the flop is Queen 4-6. Now we are 3 ways. Seat 2 and seat 7. There are some really interesting reads in this hand, so it's a very cool one. We bet 30 in middle position. We get a call from seat 2. We've been playing with seat 2 for an hour or two. It seemed to be pretty straightforward, a little on the tight side. And Moga 2 calls. Turn is a jack. I decide to check. Now, I'm a little bit concerned here about my king-queen. The reason I'm concerned is that C2's been playing a little snug, just called pre-flop, right? I'm worried about 4s and 6s for sure, in that those sort of hands are going to be in their range. And I think Queen Jack is also possible to be in their range pre-flop. So we have 3 pretty significant hands that are going to put us in a really tough spot, and we're going to lose a lot of money to in this 3-way situation. Seat 7, who's Moga2 in the Twitch chat, I'm not too concerned about him having a big hand. I think he can have a lot of stuff here. Just given the nature of the board and no 3-bet pre-flop, I'm not too worried about sets or 2 pairs for him. So we check. Pot controlling here 3 ways a little bit. My opponent, you can see, kind of fumbles the chip. And then after that, he makes a little comment to the dealer. And it's lighthearted. It's like sort of jokey. It's kind of fun. And I take a read from that situation. I'm thinking, I don't think my opponent would make a comment like that with a set. I don't think they would be lighthearted enough to sort of like ad-lib and riff when they sort of fumble the chips there with 4s or 6s or Queen Jack. So I'm like, okay. My King Queen just went from I'm cautious to, based on that little tiny live read, I'm actually kind of optimistic here. And when Moga2 calls, who's going to have some weak queens, is going to have some flush draws and some straight draws, I decide to check raise for value. I don't think I'm behind C2. So I'm actually going to get some money in here and sort of force Moga2 to fold their draw or their middle strength hand. So we make it 175. This is live poker. This is amazing. We get a call from C2. Moga2 folds. Okay, success. I think I've got the best hand. River's a king. No, I was planning to check this river, right? Not when we make 2 pair. Now we're going to value bet our king queen, which are very thin raise in the turn. We're going to value bet. And basically hope that I'm wrong and they can have a queen jack, or they can have a hand the hero calls. Calls.
2 pair.
I show the king queen, and guess what C2 has? Guess what C2 has? Queen jack. Basically, I was wrong. I was very wrong about my read. My opponent fumbled the chips, made a lighthearted comment with top 2 pair. I was completely fooled, and I totally made the wrong play. Now, I still think it's okay in that I had a live read. I went with a live read, and it changed the effects of the hand. I was wrong about the read. It didn't help me, and I sort of misassessed. But that's okay, you know? I think that's part of live poker, is you get to understand how people act. And every action that they make at the table, a la Daniel Negreanu, you know, is information. You can't be loosey-goosey. You gotta learn things from the way that people do things, and I think there's an edge to be had there. So I tried to make a read. I failed, and it worked out anyways. The moral of the story, I don't know. Take from it what you will. Moving on to the next hand. We're looking down at queens in his straddle pot. We raise it up to 35 here. And it folds all the way around to the straddle. Moga2, our friend of the stream, who calls. So we got, well, it's 77 in the middle. Go to a flop of 10-10 jack. Decent flop for queens. I mean, they're going to have some 10s in the range, of course. But it's not a huge concern. They're going to have a lot of jacks, some club draws, some straight draws, some ace highs. All that stuff we can get value from. So we bet and get a call. Turn is a 10, the beautiful 10. This cuts down on their combos of 10 significantly and makes it very likely we have the best hand. So we bet 60. We want to keep them in with a wide range of hands, and we're going to get the value from a jack anyways on the river. So we just bet 60. Moga2 raises to 160. Now, you're going to see the pain in my face in that. The question is, does Moga2 decide to raise a jack here? That's the fear. We have an overpair. We have a full house. A full house is an incredible hand in the spot. It's very hard to have quads. Quads are very unlikely. A jack feels like it has the best hand a lot of the time. But does a jack check raise the turn?
I've got a pretty good hand, Moga2, so I'm not slow rolling, but just wondering if what I can do. I've got a pretty good hand, just so you know. Yeah, okay, I just can't. I call. I have queens.
Moga2's got the quads. Is this a spot where we can fold the queens? I don't think so. There's nothing in the math that would suggest we can. Unless we have a read our opponent will never raise a jack on the turn. And that's reasonable. You know, like, I'm not going to raise a jack on the turn. I think it's kind of crazy because I raise in middle position. I have queens, kings, aces in my range that I'm losing to with a jack. And I'm not going to try and get my opponent to fold a jack, so I would just call with a jack. But we don't know that about our opponents.
Maybe.
We have an overpair. We just got to stick pretty close to standard, which is call, and then call the river shove. Looks like about 330, something like that. And lose the pot. It is what it is. What a cold run day, dude. I mean, we can't do anything right.
Is if a jack calls, you know.
So we lose a pot. Looking down at queens. Get a raise to 30 in a straddle pot from seat 6. We're on the button here with the queens.
90.
And make it 90 to go. Pulls back around to seat 6, who is going to call. Going to a flop of 6, 6, 7. Pretty dry board. We don't expect our opponent to have very many 6s or 7s in the range. They raised and called a 3-bet, so we're feeling good. We bet. They jam. We call.
Times?
We're going to run it 2 times.
I got queens.
Queens against, I believe it's
check.
ace-king. I think it's ace-king.
Let's get a spade for the sweat on the turn.
He said he was steamed. Premium after premium, couldn't get nothing. So I think he wanted to gamble a little bit. Nice guy. It wasn't ace-king because I'm getting the whole pot. So it was something worse than that. We take it down with the queens. Nice to win a pot. Moving on. Now everything's about to change in this episode. Looking down at my stack here in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see 2 full stacks of greens. That's 1,000. We got about 4 blacks there. We're about 1,500. We're about even on the session here. Okay. But the game has changed. We have an action player. Seat 3 is in the game, and we have a 2, 5, 10 straddle, 20 straddle, 40 triple straddle on here. Seat 3 is gambling. He's getting it in with a bunch of hands. We look down at ace 3 suited on the button in a triple straddle, right? The blinds here are 2, 5, 10, 20, 40. Basically, we've got a 40 blind stack right now.
120.
We raise it up to 120 on the button. Seat 3 goes all in. Is all in for 800. Has shoved there effectively 20 big blinds against us.
Do you want to gamble or not?
And it's back to us. Now, this is an insane call, right? Like this is not a call that you would make
I don't know.
in a
Like,
tournament. If you had 20
hand,
blinds,
it's
you
not
open on the
amazing.
button and someone shoves in the small blind for 20 blinds, you
don't
fold
want
ace 3
to?
suited here. It's not good enough to call. But you've got to know your opponent. And our opponent is gambling. They're getting it in with anything. Ace 3 is ahead of anything here. So against this opponent, I have to ship $800. It's just the right play. It's the right thing to do. They are mixing it up, and this could be any 2 cards.
All right.
Okay, Kyle.
Can we run it a few times? Twice? Twice. Ace 3 against 10 deuce.
The first one,
Okay.
First one.
we lose to a flush.
A5 for the second.
The second one we hold with the ace 3, and we chop
Nice.
a $1,600 pot with ace 3 suited all in pre-flop. Got it in good. Had about a 60-40. Unlucky to not win both, but I mean, the game has changed. We grinded a pretty tight game all day, and now stacks are going in the middle. We look down at ace 9
60.
and raise it up to 60. That same action player is in seat 2. Get a call on the button, call in the small blind, call in the big blind, call in the straddle. We go to a flop of 9, 7, 7, 5 ways on the flop. Check to us.
150.
We bet 150 into a pretty big pot here, 300, right? So we're trying to thin the field a bit, right? If we get check raised all in, we're going to have to fold. Someone is going to be able to have a 7, except for maybe against the action player. Against everyone else, we want them to fold out their queen jacks. We want them to fold out their ace 6s. These sort of hands that can pick up equity for free on the turn, get out of the way. And we also want to get paid from a king 9, from a queen 9, from a jack 9, from a 10 9, from a 9 8. Want to force a diamond draw to put in more money, etc. So we bet 150. Our opponent calls. Turn is the king of hearts. They shove. What the heck do we do? It's
How much?
it's a shove for about, I think, 600.
Come on, man.
There's 600 in the middle. They shove it for pot. What do we do with our ace 9? We're in a very difficult spot again. Our opponent could have just hit that king, right? They could have had a 7 that they hit on the flop. Now, but there's the diamond draws and the heart draws. There's the diamond draws and the heart draws and the straight draws against a crazy player. What the heck do we do with ace 9 for a pot size bet? What do we do? I don't know. I still don't know today. It's like 5 days later. I still don't know what to do. So I think something to note is that my opponent probably isn't going to play a 7 like this. Let's try and get into the head of my opponent. and think about, okay, so you flop trips and you're an aggressive player. Are you going to, first of all, just call on the flop? And then second of all, make a pot size shove on the king of hearts turn? No, probably not. You're either going to check raise the flop, or if you're going to slow play it, you're probably just going to check the turn and then shove the river. You're not too concerned, especially if you're this kind of player. So you're going to try and play into that dynamic. This is a thing where our opponent makes sort of a weak call on the flop and then a very sort of mock aggressive move on the turn. So it looks defensive to me. It doesn't seem like a 7. So I'm going to kind of rule out a 7. But a king is certainly possible. A king totally makes sense. Makes a wide call on the flop with king whatever, hits the king and decides to shove. That makes sense to me. What also makes sense is a hand like 10-8. What also makes hands is a hand like 8-6, like diamonds, like hearts. All of those are going to be reasonable. So do we want to call this $600-ish, $700-ish into a pot of 600 against this opponent?
Call.
King 9.
King's good.
King 9 our
Ace
opponent
9.
has against our ace 9. We're in really tough shape.
How many times? Just once?
One time, let's go.
It's a jack, and we lose a stack. The action
Nice
player has got the best of me, has won a stack off me, and chopped the other one. We're looking down at ace of hearts, queen of diamonds.
35.
We raise it up to 35. We get a call in the cutoff, and we get a call in the small blind from our action player, who, for what it's worth, has kind of calmed down at this point about an hour and a half later. Go to a flop of queen 10-4.
75.
We bet 75 into a pot of about 110 three ways. Get a call in C1 and a call from our action players. 3 ways to the turn. It's an 8 of hearts. We decide to check and pot control a little bit here. The main concern is seat, is the cutoff. You know, seat 1 that can have some good hands. Checks through. We have an ace on the river. And our action player bets 350. Now the spade's complete. We have top 2 pair. What do we do? I don't know, man. Again, we lose to any spades. We lose to king jack. I wasn't too concerned about seat 1 having the flush for whatever reason. I thought they would play it differently. They'd play it more aggressively, decide to bet the turn, something like that. Especially when the ace of spades comes off, it would have to be king high spades or queen high spades. Queen high spades probably going to raise at some point. They're a straightforward player. So what do we do with our top 2 pair? I don't know. we're against a tough player. We're against an action player.
Call. We
decide to call. I don't think I love my call anymore. I think there's just so many things our opponents can have. And at this point, they'd calm down a little bit. So I don't think I love it. They show the king high spades, king 7 of spades. So we lose another 350. Looks like we're in about an 800 stack here. And we just lose pot after pot. It's a tough day. At the end of the day, we only lost 460. So we saw a lot of losing pots in this video, but at the end of the day, it ended up okay. So we're going to start the next session with $6,810, a new low for the challenge. Now you may be losing confidence in the challenge and in me. I understand. I mean, hey, we've lost 5 out of 6 in the starting days, but hang in there. I think we can do it. I think I've got some poker chops. I think my decisions are okay. The ace queen call is a little light, maybe. I don't love that one. The rest of them, I'm fine with. So we're going to get them in episode 7. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate you. Follow wherever you're watching this. But until next time, we'll see you later. Goodbye.